And welcome everybody. We'll be talking today a bit about the Collaboration Success Program, which is a pretty exciting new thing that we're kicking off. I have Erin Murtha from Internet2, works on InCommon related things, and is our training and consulting program lead, and John Kaminga from University of California, Merced. So before we kind of get started, I just wanted to set a little bit of context for this. As you all may know, InCommon/Internet2 has been doing software development for probably close to 20 years based on research and education requirements, gaps, things that we collectively come up with as a community and figure out what we want to address. So it's the whole approach that we've taken for this long is, engaging working groups, engaging your requirements, and essentially working with development teams to get those pushed into software. I think the thing that's really cool about the Collaboration Success Program and the new opportunities that we're seeing coming to fruition this year is that we are really focusing on training and helping you to address specific challenges that you have at your institution. And so the Collaboration Success Program is really all about that. That's exactly what it's about. And so why don't we start out a bit and hear from John Kaminga about what his challenge was at UC Merced.
Thank you, Ann. Yes, this is John Kaminga from UC Merced. So UC Merced migrated off of our Sun Waveset identity management system to this interim homegrown solution, mainly because after searching for a complete identity management system for higher education, we couldn't find one to fit our needs. So what we ended up with was this hodgepodge set of tools and code to provision users and control their access. We had Shibboleth and CAS for single sign-on, some Angular front end, Java for provisioning logic, an Oracle database, and then a bunch of LDAP attributes for access management. So I think our biggest needs were an identity registry to hold all of our user data and provisioning logic, and an access management system that we could hopefully hand off most of the control to our campus admins to administer themselves. So we joined TIER, hoping to contribute to a full identity and access management system that can meet our needs for provisioning workflow and utilize security standards, and among some other things. So for our CSP, we chose to implement two products, Midpoint for our identity registry and Grouper for our access management. But then after being accepted into the CSP program, we quickly realized that this was too aggressive, and we chose to only implement Midpoint for the CSP project.
Great. So John, we'll hear more from you, I think, at the end about your experience with the CSP, with the Collaboration Success Program. So thanks very much. Let's go on to the next slide. So over the last 20 some years and working with folks, we're hearing, there are lots of different particular challenges that organizations are having, but these are the four, I think, big ones that we hear about. So managing access, John was talking about that, right? Having the right people access the right services at the right time, need to have delegation. You probably need to be able to audit the whole thing, right? So there's some really concrete needs there. Scholarly collaborations, how do you include individuals from all over our nation, right, into a collaboration where the services are also possibly spread everywhere. There may be some, for instance, data sources that an organization has that you want to push into that, or you may want to just do it by invitation and say, I want to invite 500 of my closest friends and collaborators into this group. and then being able to delegate, say, to a graduate student to actually manage who gets access to what. Guest systems are kind of similar, but you think of it maybe from an enterprise side of things, where you have contractors, you might have students from, interested in basketball camps, summer youth programs, parents, and you need to be able to control access to what they have, and you don't want them necessarily all mingled in with the rest of your identity management systems. And then finally, kind of the bread and butter, and I would say one of the use cases, not the use case, but one of the use cases and solutions that kicked off a lot of this development was scaling problems. We all have, at higher ed, we have these, populations that come in, and there are thousands of people that have to get provisioned and possibly T-provisioned. And it's all about rules and tools, right? Managing who can access what, probably pulling in data from your ERP system, pushing it out to the right services, things like that. And that's really, I would think of it as kind of the bread and butter of what identity and access management does. So let's go on to the next slide. So all of the software that we've been working on for the last 20-some years can be connected in with standard architectural patterns to address these particular solutions. And the Collaboration Success Program really takes these solutions and actually starts working with and helping you figure out, okay, I'm interested in the managing access, here's what I have on campus already, and these are the types of functions that I need. And so working with you on planning and training, and then also at the very end, right, in integration practicum, where you actually go through and you can set up the component, the pieces of architecture you might need, and come out the other side with, depending on what your needs are, an actual working component, or it may be a prototype. Maybe you want to prototype a number of different things. So to hear more about that, I'm going to bounce over to Erin, and she can tell us about the details of the Collaboration Success Program.
Thank you. So what exactly is the Collaboration Success Program, or CSP, if you want to abbreviate? It's a really great opportunity to come together with a cohort of peers that are having similar challenges, just like you. We hope to get 10 to 15 different organizations to come together, and you work with community implementers, subject matter experts, developers, architects, and the InCommon program staff to really get help make traction on your project plans. So as John mentioned earlier, Merced had a little bit of a problem with scoping. So what we want to do is actually get together early on to review your project plans, help make sure that they are scoped appropriately, and then set you up for success. So as Anne mentioned also, it's great because you have this community of folks to work with. You're not going it alone, and you have all the access you need to the right people at the right time with training opportunities, et cetera. And you come out the other end, and it's great because you have an opportunity to give back. We learned a lot from the previous program that ran that we are actually able to inform our development efforts. So it's a great opportunity. Go ahead, Dean. So some of the benefits are, as I mentioned, you have this opportunity to go and meet new friends from around the world, possibly around the globe, coming together with similar problems, and you don't have to do it alone. You get the right access to the right people at the right time. So we have dedicated Slack channels that only CSP folks and our alumni can enter into with all the right experts that you need. So anything if you're developers, or if you're working on the best way to architect something, or you just want to bounce an idea off one another, those are all available to you at any time. Training workshop. We have, the InCommon Academy has rolled out all of our component courses this fall. So we have a midpoint class, we have Grouper and Co-Manage and Shibboleth all offered this fall. If you were in the CSP, you would have an opportunity to use 4 training seats, so you could pick and choose the right match for you. You might decide you want to have 2 people attend different couple classes, that's fine. However you want to slice and dice it would work. Also, another great thing is if you really enjoy the training, which you will because it's a fun time, you get lifetime discounts. So CSP alumni will always get a discount on future InCommon training. and you have an opportunity to work with us to help to move your project plans forward. We do come together. We're going to come together in a face-to-face meeting, which I'll talk about in a moment. But in addition to working with, through the Slack channels, we have facilitated biweekly sessions that will kick off in January. And so it's a great opportunity to come together, share what blockers you may have, what progress you're making, and really get together with the cohort and keep engaged. And InCommon staff will kind of help to keep you on task as we're moving along. Okay. So here's our roadmap for the CSP 2020. You've probably gotten an email from me, and if not, I certainly would welcome you to leave your email address behind, and I'm happy to reach out. We're going through an expression of interest exercise at the moment. So if you're interested in the CSP, learning more, it's not a commitment, but if you'd like to learn more of the fine details behind it, there's a great survey that you can complete. It'll take you all of about 5 minutes, just so we can learn a little bit more about what project plans you have. And once I get that survey back, I will reach out and set up a quick Zoom call for about 45 minutes so that our program staff can talk with your project team to learn a little bit more about your needs, and we can together assess whether we might be the right fit. We're hoping that we'll be announcing that cohort at the end of September and or the 1st of October, and then we'll open up Slack channels so that you can all get to know one another and our alumni and meet all of our great support experts. We're also planning a face-to-face meeting that will be hosted by one of our alumni, the Colorado School of Mines out in beautiful Golden, Colorado. So this is a great opportunity to go and rub elbows with one another and some of our subject matter experts, and others will be available remotely as well. As I mentioned, we have a full suite of training in October through December. So we're hoping that people can, with their newly scoped project plan, you can go out and get the right training so that we can all come back together and hit the ground running in January. January through March, that's where I mentioned we'll have some of these bi-weekly sessions so that you're able to directly connect with the rest of your cohort, subject matter experts, et cetera. And in April, we're hoping that we can wrap the program up. If people are able to attend Global Summit, that would be great, not required, but it's a great opportunity to share your experiences with the community and share your lessons learned and help us continue to grow and keep this program going strong. Okay. In case you are interested in training, here is the full schedule. We're kicking off a Shibboleth in Denver in October, hosted at UC Denver. Temple University has stepped up and they will be hosting both the grouper and co-managed training together in 1 week. We thought it was nice to be able to offer 2 courses in 1 week so that we can help to reduce some of the travel budgets out there. Midpoint, we're working directly with our partner Evolvium to deliver a virtual 3-day class. And registrations are open for these. And as I mentioned, this would be included to pick and choose from with the 4 included seats. And then we'll have another cycle of this training also in the spring. Okay. I'll turn it over to John so he can talk a little bit about his experience as a program alumni.
Thank you, Erin. So these are the campuses that were involved with us. Some campuses were obviously farther along with certain products, but they were a big help in communicating their strategies when getting it set up, or even some future pitfalls we might run into. Lafayette had extensive knowledge running grouper, was very helpful, sharing best practices when setting up the groups so they don't get out of hand and become hard to manage. Next slide. So what worked for UC Merced was being able to reach out to the experts. Even though we got a late start on CSP because of a UC-wide mandated project that we were wrapping up, we quickly got caught up by submitting our architecture diagram and our project plan to the SMEs for them to review. Having an expert bless our architecture diagram, I think, helped us convince leadership that we were heading in the right direction, which waiting for buy-in from leadership or not getting it can really slow down a project. So I think Midpoint was a relatively new product for Internet 2 a couple years ago when we started. So the first thing that the Midpoint CSP campuses did was set up a training with the vendor. We actually had one of the developers help us. This helped move the project forward during the initial learning phase. The training was a basic training on how to get it set up using Docker, setting up some connectors and some syncs, and even some basic provisioning logic using Groovy. I think the one thing that I would change about the training would be probably remove the role and access provisioning that they included, because most of the campuses, not all the campuses, would use Grouper to set up the access management and centralize that. But I think the training helped us hit the ground running with our implementation of Midpoint. However, our resources quickly got diverted to a higher priority project, implementing Duo two-factor authentication. But it was hard to join our biweekly meetings and try to communicate that we weren't making any progress. So I do thank Aaron for keeping us on track. But one thing I would recommend to any campuses joining would be to dedicate the campus resources, or even require the campus resources to be involved for the project's entirety. For problem solving, it was nice to have the Slack channels to collaborate in real time on any issues that we ran into. So when we started, there wasn't a Docker image for Midpoint yet. So we actually utilized the image that we were given during our training. But the Midpoint Docker image that's out there right now, I think has everything that we would need. It's extremely easy to download and set up. Literally one git command to pull the code, a Docker command to start it, and then it just starts pulling in users from a database. Bam! There were like 1,000 users in LDAP all of a sudden. I was like, this is how it should work for us. One thing that I kind of wish we would have taken better advantage of would be partnering with other campuses that were also implementing Midpoint. We did help each other out. Oregon actually shared their connectors with everyone. I wrote a how-to document on how to set up connectors using the GUI. But I think if we were joining again, we definitely want to work on some, shared piece of working code. So we set up working groups. There was a banner connector working group. I think that it was probably taking on too much. Well, it is banner. But we were able to actually work with a Midpoint dev to help us with best practice on setting up connectors. We also worked with an Lucian API developer. He joined us and he taught us how Ethos actually works behind the covers. At the time, we didn't have any campuses running Ethos in production, but we actually should here next year. So I think that in the next CSP, it wouldn't be too much to ask to actually come up with a banner connector for Midpoint utilizing Ethos. So staying engaged, another group I was part of was the API group. I think we made great headway on setting up standards for the APIs for Midpoint. The Docker image for Midpoint that they set up already has the database, LDAP, a message queue. I'm still part of the group's ad hoc meetings when needed, and part of the Slack channels whenever someone has questions. Okay, Aaron?
Thank you. All right, next slide. So hopefully you're interested in learning a little bit more and consider joining us in this next round of CSP. If you are interested in learning a bit more, here's a link to the survey that I mentioned. It should take you about 5 minutes. And just, it's really an opportunity for us to connect. There's no commitment to joining at this point. But as I mentioned, what it will do is kick off a prompt for me to go ahead and reach out to you. And I would ask for your availability and set up a Zoom call with us so that we can talk about your project plans and how we might be able to help you out to solve those. The next thing you could do is review the training opportunities. Here's a link to our training portfolio. I think Dean also posted a link to this in the chat window. If you want to learn all of the program details and fees and all of the good stuff, there's another link here. And if you have any other questions afterwards, you can always feel free to reach out to us at help@incommon.org or visit our website at incommon.org/academy CSP. So that's all the content we have for today. Next slide. I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions.
Well, it looks like, and this is Ann again, looks like we don't have any questions yet. There are a number of folks, thanks Jane Marie, posting things in the Slack channel. Looks like Jessica posted Banner Integration Working Group opportunity. So we'll just wait it out just a bit and see if there are any further questions. Yeah, that's a great idea to display that slide.
Yeah, and I just wanted to also highlight the goal would be to hear from you all by September 20th if you're interested in joining us, so that we can make our target of, say by October 1st to do the cohort announcement. There's still time.
I think, and John, back to some of John's comments about the CSP last year, we have shortened it up a bit to make it more focused, and because some of the concerns that we heard, the last CSP was about a year long, and that included a year of biweekly calls. So it was quite a bit of a commitment. So we've shortened it up quite a bit, in part to focus your work, help focus your work in and your team's time. Understanding that, people get pulled a bunch of different ways. So having a real specific time frame is probably really useful. So we shortened it up. And I think the other big difference, really big difference from this program from the last one is that there is actual formal training prior to actually doing the practicum, where before we were actually kind of doing both of them roughly at the same time, and we didn't have formal training for grouper and co-manage at the time. So those are two really, I think, pretty big differences that we hope will be helpful